My name is Barbara. You'll find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Diva S. It is Monday, February 12th, 2018. And thank you so much for joining me. If you're new, welcome. I hope you enjoy the podcast. And if you're coming back, then thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who has reached out. I love hearing from you, and I really appreciate it. Anyway, I am still on my first cup of coffee with my snowman. Thank you, Susan. So, I apologize in advance. But I have a lot to do. Taking my mother-in-law grocery shopping as soon as I'm done recording this. And then I got to get the house organized because we're having everybody over on Wednesday. Valentine's Day is my mother-in-law's birthday, and so everybody's coming. And I may have to do a super cleanup because if we have too many people, then I have to clear off the dining room table, which is literally a foot deep in stuff. So I guess that means I have to take down the Christmas decorations and put the living room stuff back in the living room because there won't be any place for us to eat. So anyway, so busy day, busy week, because Dennis and I are off to Chile on Friday. We're so excited. We're doing sort of a combination vacation because we're doing one of our tours from Overseas Adventure Travel. It's called From the Atacama to the Chilean Fjords. And we'll be going up to the Atacama Desert, which is the driest desert in the world. And one of the places we're visiting is at 14,000 feet. So I hope I don't get altitude sickness because I didn't get any pills. And see some of the interesting stuff up there. And then we fly to the bottom tip of Chile, and we're going to Patagonia and do some hiking and take a short 3-day cruise around the fjords and see the glaciers and Straits of Magellan and very cool places like that. So we are very excited to do that. We've never been to Chile, and it's an amazing country, very long and skinny. And but as exciting for me, we are going 4 days early and spending 4 days in Santiago, where I will be meeting Mane in person. She and her husband have graciously offered to show us around Santiago. I'm so excited. There's nothing like a native guide when you're in another country to have someone who lives there who knows what's going on. And Dennis thinks he speaks a little bit of Spanish, but he speaks the tiniest bit of Spanish. And I don't speak any Spanish. I had 2 years of Spanish in high school, but it didn't really stick. But, we get along. You often find students who want to practice their English and, who will help you and, and people who speak English, although Mane's worried we won't find that many. I don't know. And I'm also hoping to meet up with Connie from Chili Knits and the Chili Knits podcast, who also lives in Santiago. So I'm so excited. I cannot tell you how excited I am for this upcoming trip. So, and I'm excited, but not ready. So I have a lot of things to do. So that's fun. So that means that there will not be a podcast in 2 weeks, among other things. Because we will still be gone. I will be posting my adventures on Instagram if you want to follow me on Instagram. Although for part of it we won't have internet service when we're down on the ship. Apparently we won't have internet service, so we will be just out in nature. So that should be fun too. So this is actually a knitting podcast, and sometimes a little spinning, although not much spinning lately. I have to get keep working on my room and myself, get my head organized. you can see that my bins are empty over there. Don't worry, nobody stole my yard. As sort of the first step in cleaning up my room, I took the huge box of yarn that hadn't been registered in my Ravelry stash and did that. So my Ravelry stash is now up to date as I can make it. And so I had that yarn in the other room, and I thought, well, now's my chance to get a little organized. So I took all my fingering weight yarn, and that's a lie. I have a bin of like Patons Croix and Opal and, super, sock yarn that's only sock yarn that you're never going to make anything but socks out of. I have a bin down there that I did not put on the bed, but I'll put a picture here. This is the bed. This is my fingering stash. So I was going to take a page from Michelle of the Naughty Knitwits and take Carrie's advice and maybe organize by color. But it was interesting to me to see my yarn laid out on that bed and see the colors that I have and the colors that I don't have. And, the colors that I'm buying, as opposed to, quite a few of those skeins I got in like Yarn Box and things like that, or in yarn clubs. So they're not exactly yarn that I went out and picked. I should pull out the yarns that I bought and put them together, or maybe pull out the club skeins, even though I may love them. Pull out the club skeins and see. These are the yarns that I actually bought that I was drawn to and picked myself, and see what that color scheme looks like, because it's pretty interesting. Not too many greens, way more burgundies and reds, and not bright reds, but more like burgundies and rusty reds than I expected. And not very many blues. Almost all the blues I have are colors that came in clubs, I think. Anyway, I found it very interesting, but there's my fingering stash that's going to go in this, in the cubbies. I think I'm going to clear out that cubby that's got books and stuff. I don't know what's in there. I just stuck stuff there. I need that for yarn. So those books will go in someplace else, whatever they are. They're not even books, they're papers and things. One of the projects anyway, this is a knitting podcast. So we talked about having because you were talking back. People responded, so it's like a year-long Year of the Sweater knit along. And so we're going to be doing that. I already have the thread up. I decided, I got such a nice response to that in the comments and messages that people were interested in having a sweater knit along. So I started it. I opened the threads, and basically any sweater, any adult size sweater that is finished between February 1st and December 31st qualifies if you're a member of our group. That's it. Whips allowed. I want to encourage people to finish sweaters. So any sweater finished after February 1st is eligible. And periodically I will be picking for prizes in the finished objects thread and in the chatter thread. So no chatter in the finished objects thread, but if you don't mind if posting in both threads, if you put your finished sweater in the chatter thread, then we can tell you how beautiful it is and talk about it a little bit, which is fun. I'm looking forward to new ideas for sweaters and interesting yarn combinations and things like that. So please join me in the Year of the Sweater, because I am so excited. And I'm calling it the Year of the Sweater KAL, Year of the Sweater KAL. I'm putting it up here on Instagram and Ravelry, and nobody had that, Year of the Sweater KAL. I probably should have put the year, but I didn't. So post. I would love to see your sweaters, and I look forward to spending the year knitting sweaters with you. The other thing I talked about was swap. I love getting yarn in the mail and swaps. In fact, I'm going to be sending my FiberShare package out this week also. It's one of the many things I have to do before I leave on Friday. And so I talked about maybe we could have a swap in our group, and I'd like to do that. So I will put a thread in the Ravelry group, and it's hard to know the best format for the swap. I think we should do something like 100 grams of lovely yarn. I know my friend was saying she doesn't do swaps anymore because, you know, she sent a lovely package and she got, you know, a big box store yarn back. And so she was kind of disappointed. So a skein of lovely yarn and maybe some minis and a little something, maybe a little something you made or a little special treat in there and some candy or tea, something like that. Just a small package. I don't want to be too prescriptive about it, but, you know, something lovely, just a nice little lovely package to swap. So I will put that in there and just with some ideas, but I think this swap is I'm going to match people. So you're going to be sending to the person who's sending to you. So you two will have to get in touch with each other to get addresses and things. And frankly, you guys can decide what you want. If you want mini skeins in your swap, if you want to swap 2 skeins of yarn. I mean, you know, what I don't want is to have an unbalanced pairing. Oh, my eyes are itchy this morning. Maybe it's because I haven't had much coffee. I don't know. It's been warm. Maybe I'm getting allergies or something. So, because the second time I did a swap, I did, Mina Phillip a couple years ago did sponsored a swap, and it was sort of like a local swap. So you were supposed to get things that were local to you and send them to your partner. And I got a bunch of stuff. I live about 10 miles from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, which is famous for that's where the Amish live. And so they have all kinds of, you know, interesting foods. And so I took that as, you know, from where I live. And I made up a package. And it was a nice package, but I had little bottles of jelly and stuff in it. And I was sending to Great Britain. It cost me $25 to mail it. And I will tell you the truth. I had gotten some candy that was just wrapped with a tie. I took 2 ounces of that candy out of that bag because if that 2 ounces had been in, it would cost me another $12 to ship. Is that terrible? I just thought, oh my gosh, $35 to mail the package. So anyway, so I sent this package and I had made a project bag and put some yarn in, and we had talked about minis, but I realized I didn't really have any minis at that point because I had only made like 1 pair of socks and, you know, so I didn't have minis. Anyway, it was a nice package. It was a nice package. When I got the package back from her, it was full of minis. It had more yarn than I had sent her. It was just unbelievable. I felt bad. I mean, everything was lovely. It was a beautiful package, and I just felt like I really had gypped her compared to what I got. And it made me feel bad, you know. So I don't want anybody to feel bad. Well, I felt so bad that I sent her a second package, and I had to pay the postage anyway. I just I gotta send you more stuff. What you sent me was so beautiful. I don't want anybody to feel like that in our swap. I don't want anybody to feel bad when they get their package. Because, you know, maybe I'm the only one that would react that way. But she just was so generous. And and I said something like, oh my gosh. And she said, oh no, I wanted to send you everything I sent you. She was so sweet. I mean, really, what a lovely young woman. And, but anyway, I felt bad. And I don't want anybody to feel bad in our swap. So I will just put a suggestion, you know, don't go overboard, not, you know, just like something lovely that you made maybe, and a little, I don't know. I'm going to let you guys work it out so that nobody feels ripped off and nobody feels sad because their bag maybe wasn't good enough. So maybe nobody else is like that but me. It could be. Maybe everybody else is like, oh, I hit the jackpot. I just felt like a jerk. So I sent her a second package. So I don't feel like a jerk anymore. But I could have sent her that 2 more ounces of candy too. Except I ate it. So I put a thread in the group for a swap. And please, you know, and I'm going to ask it, you know, if you international shipping and that kind of stuff, because it can get pricey. I don't advise sending jars of jelly, just if you're shipping internationally. The jars got there and she appreciated them, but that was a little wacky. So anyway, so that's what we're thinking about. So check out the group. This is why you should join our group, and we'll have a knit along, and we'll have a swap. I have to blow my nose. Okay, now my nose is all red, and I realized I forgot to put on my lipstick. It's not because I don't love you. I just forgot. It's early in the morning. I'm still on my first cup of coffee. Finished objects. I finished my hat. I think that's the one I was knitting. Yeah. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. This is the third 2x2 hat that I knit. This is for charity. I'm taking it to SSK. I'm going to get points and somebody's going to get a lovely hat. This is the 2x2 pattern by Anne Gagnon. And it's a really easy, quick knit. It'll fit anybody. I do a long tail cast on and I use another color. See, this is the one I finished last week, so I used the gray as my tail, and then it just gives it a little interest, and I don't have to try to figure out how much yarn I need for my tail, for my long tail cast on, because I'm using 2 different yarns. You do have to weave in more ends, because you have gray ones to weave in, and you have to weave it in a place where nobody will see the gray, which isn't always that easy since it's only the cast on. But anyway, the yarn is Knit Picks Brava Bulky. It's mostly acrylic, worsted weight. Oh, 100% acrylic. It feels great. It does. It really feels great. It's going to be warm. You've seen it before. Enough said. My other finished object is, I knit another sweater while you weren't looking. Oh my gosh. I had just finished my sweater, and right before I podcast last time, I finished the Karina sweater. And I wanted to start another sweater, and I wanted to start a sweater with that gorgeous Chilean yarn that I had made my worsted boxy that it didn't work out. I started right after my podcast on Monday, I ripped out that sweater, and I rewashed the yarn and balled it and skeined it up, and to recover that yarn. And I started swatching again because I was going to do a pattern, which I'm not remembering the name of. It's a woman's name. I'm putting it right down there. It's an Isabel Kramer pattern that Mars of Hey Brownberry was doing, and I thought, oh, that would be perfect for this because it's a 2-color sweater, and it looked like it was bulkier yarn. And I started swatching for that, and I couldn't get gauge, and I just, so I processed the yarn, and I was swatching, and I didn't have a sweater on the needles for 3 days. And I was feeling kind of bummed, and I wasn't, and I realized that I was just working too hard to try to use that yarn right away. So I decided not to do that. So I decided to make a Hint of Summer sweater by Isabel Kramer. And I did the sleeved version. And I'm going to stand up and hope that this works and that you can see. It's a very oversized sweater. I will have Dennis take my picture and put it put it on there. So now I'm going to try to get my chair back. So I will have a picture up there because I'll ask Dennis to take my picture. Now this sweater is made out of yarn that I consider that this is yarn I made. You have seen this Tussa silk before. I just cut it off the quadri scarf that I started last summer for my mother that wasn't working. That is the second scarf I've tried to knit out of this for my mother. I have this much left. This is like the ball of yarn that never goes away. So that is what these little stripes are in this sweater. And it gives it a nice shine, and that's fun. The other yarn is a marled yarn. This is all I have left. And that is this yarn, this silk, that I plied up with some recovered cashmere that I bought at Maryland Sheep and Wool 2 years ago. 3 years ago now, almost. And so it was also a lace weight. And so I plied it together because I had 2 of these and there are no good memories with this yarn. So I wanted to change the yarn. And so I just plied them together, 2 lace weights, and it turned into this lovely yarn. So this is a strand of cashmere and a strand of Tussa silk in this. And when you do that, you still end up with, a super light fingering or a heavy lace still, even though you use 2 lace weights. So that is what my other stripe was. Now the pattern has even stripes. I decided not to do that. I was afraid that Tussa silk by itself was going to be too see-through-y. Although this is a light see-through-y thing, and I'm wearing a whatever you call this, cami, and so I'm always going to have a cami under it, so it probably doesn't matter. But that's the yarn that I used. I ended up, surprisingly, getting gauge. Excuse me while I rooch around, as they say in Pennsylvania Dutchland. I'm rooching. I got gauge. I don't know how I did that. I can't get gauge generally, but I got gauge. I have no idea. So I used a size 6 on the top where you're doing the short rows and, before you start knitting in the round. And then I went up to a 7 once I started knitting in the round because my knitting in the round gauge is tighter than my back and forth gauge. And that has worked out really well. I can't tell the difference. I can't see the line. And that's what I did. Now, I did the 3/4 length sleeve one, and I confess, I forgot to try it on last night before I washed it and blocked it. So I was trying it on really for the first time this morning. And it feels kind of too much. It feels like too big. It's got a jillion inches of positive ease. I think I made it too big. It's either too small or too big. Apparently, that's how my life is. Too small or too big. I Measured myself, again, my bust measurement. Turns out to be 4 inches bigger than I thought it was. I don't know why I remembered 40, but I'm not a 40, I'm a 44. Which would explain why my Karina is much more tight-fitting than it probably should be. But that one's going to be, that's fine. So I'm like, okay, I'm a 44. It's got to have 10 inches of ease. So I did the size 54, 53 and 3/4. Now I didn't actually measure the sweater when I had it laid out. So I'm not sure actually what the measurement is. I guess I'll measure it when I take it off, just to see. But anyway, it just feels like too much. And it's a funny, the neckline, I think I need to get a cami that comes a little higher so it's more obvious I'm wearing a cami. It's like weird. It's like, looks like my underwear is showing when it does show because so little of it shows. It doesn't look intentional. But I realized I'm not loving the sleeves. And it is so long. I mean, this is my elbow. It comes almost to my elbow. It comes to my elbow without the sleeve. And it feels like the sleeves just don't feel right. It doesn't feel like it needs the sleeves. The armholes are not very big. So it's not like I'll have, you know, people looking into my armhole if I take the sleeve off. So I'm really seriously thinking of taking the sleeve off and maybe just leaving an inch of sleeve and calling it a day. Because I think it's the sleeve that feels sloppy to me. And I think otherwise it's just like a light, airy overshirt for the summer. And I think I'm going to be really happy with it. One thing I did, I don't know what I was thinking of. I did a 1 rib on the bottom. There's no 1 rib in this pattern. Everything is done with 2 rows of purl and then 2 rows of knit at the end. Somehow I read that as a 1 rib for the bottom, but I don't care about that. I think I'm going to leave that. And but now, you know, as I was getting ready to start the podcast, I was thinking, I think it's the sleeves I'm not crazy about. They just don't. And with this yarn isn't going to have much memory, and I think I'm just going to take the sleeves off and just do a band. And it'll still come to my elbows. That's the thing. It'll still come to my elbows, which is what I want. I want to cover up my upper arm, but I think that's going to work out just fine. So I think that's what I might do. But this is my finished sweater. This is the 3rd sweater that I have started and finished this year. A Hint of Summer by Isabel Kramer. So I enjoyed that. I like the feel of the fabric. It's nice and light. I'm like, why am I knitting summer sweaters? I can't really, it's hard to tell how light it is. Can you see through? Yeah, maybe you can see through there. But, so, you know, I'll always wear it with a cami. But I do. I think I'm going to get a higher neck cami, so it's obvious I'm wearing a cami. Very strange. So, my first entry into the Year of the Sweater knit along, because I started it on February 2nd and I finished it a couple days ago. And once Dennis takes my picture, I'll have it up in Ravelry as a finished object, and I'm so excited. So, those are my 2 finished objects. Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I've had this on for 10 minutes while I got ready, so I need to think about it, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be taking those sleeves back and making them much shorter, because they're not, I don't think they're doing anything for me, and I think they're not necessary in terms of covering my big upper arms, because it is so wide, and then it's like a little flowy caftan, short caftan. So anyway, I'm actually pretty happy with it, even though it didn't turn out the way I expected, which seems to be typical. One of these days, I'm going to figure it out, which is why, you know, I'm making sweaters. I'm very excited. My next sweater that I'm going to knit is not designed by Isabel Kramer. Marcella Chang, who is the co-host of the Chili Knits with Connie, who is the dyer behind Chili Knits Yarn. She is a designer, and I was watching their podcast the other day, and she has 2 new sweater designs that she has just finished. And so I contacted her and said, please let me just knit one of your sweaters, or both. They were both lovely. One was a cardigan that has sort of a rounded silhouette, you know, comes down the front and then it goes around, and, you know, it has short rows in the back, so it's kind of a circular look. A summer cardigan made out of fingering weight. And then she also has a tee with some lace up here and a lace bottom. It's kind of long, and anyway, it was lovely also. So I am hoping to get that pattern in the next couple days because I want to knit it while I am away. And that will be fun. I had originally planned on knitting Marcella's newest you see the pattern, and I can't possibly pronounce the name of it. She has a new shawl, a 2-color shawl. It was just here. Even when I try to organize, there's no organization. That's not possible. Anyway, and I may do that too. It's a native Chilean word that I cannot pronounce. And I have ordered 2 skeins of chili knits that I'm going to pick up from Connie while I'm in Santiago, and maybe I'll knit that. So it depends on if I get the pattern or not in time to knit a sweater while I'm in Chile. Wouldn't that be fun? So I'm very excited about that. I think the cardigan is what she is going to have ready in the next day or 2. So I have gone through my stash, and I'm looking at yarn for that, and so that'll be fun. So I do have some knitting on the needles. As soon as I finish one 2x2, I start another one. This is also a Knit Picks Brava. Not much to say about that. I knit this on a US 6 size 16-inch needle. And so I have started my hat number 4 for charity to take to SSK in July when I go. Oh, I gotta get organized with my travel plans for that. And so the other thing I am knitting is also killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I am making a gift. I am making fingerless mitts. They're called the Taroa mitts, and they are by Kirsten Kapoor. And she is also one of the designers at SSK, so making her stuff also counts for points. And so I bought this book, Drop Dead Easy Knits. There's a sweater in here that I think is what I'm going to use that beautiful Chilean yarn for. This is one of my goodies that I got. So I have a gift that I'm making, and that I need to have a gift, and so I decided that I was going to, I'm looking for the sweater too. I decided to make fingerless mitts out of my hand spun. So I have not knit very much with my hand spun, and I'm not sure why. Well, I don't end up with a lot of, where's that sweater? I do not end up with a lot of yardage often, and you know, it's the same problem you have with a single skein. Oh, there it is. Of course, it's the first thing. So this is the cardigan that I think I am going to make out of that beautiful yarn that Monty sent me. And I think I'm going to make the body out of the mint, and then the collar band, front band, and pockets out of the gray. And I think that's going to be beautiful. And this is Quinson Company Osprey, which presumably is at least a worsted, if not bulky. Anyway, I think that's going to be beautiful, but that's also Kristen Kapoor. So at some point in the next 2 months, I'm going to make that sweater. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, I started making the Toroa knits. And they are in my beautiful round rabbit bag with the knit fabric. That's actually knit. It's beautiful. So soft and squishy. And these are, this is where I am. I'm knitting them 2 at a time. Out of my hand spun. Now this is hand spun that I did from a loop bump. Here are my 2 balls of yarn. They are not the same size, but that'll be fine. It'll all be fine. So I hope my friend is not OCD, because they do not match. You know, they're starting to feel like maybe they came from the same yarn. I don't know, but I think I just lost something. So this is my hand spun, and this is these are my mitts. I'm doing these on a size 4. I had a lot of trouble finding a size 4. I have apparently everything I've got on the needles is a 4. And couldn't find my cable needle, so I'm using, hold on. So I'm using a little 9-inch circ for my cable needle, which I do not like it to make socks with, so that works out. And so I'm sitting and watching the Olympics, knitting on those mitts for a friend out of my hand spun. And I'm really enjoying knitting out of my hand spun, and I'm thinking, maybe I'll keep these because I really like them. But I have other hand spun over here. I could make myself a pair. They go really quick. I mean, I literally cast that on last night at dinner time. So they go very well, and there's nothing like doing it 2 at a time to feel like you're making some progress. Okay, so the Drop Dead Easy Knits was one of my goodies. I am going to make that sweater, which is why I got the book, was for that sweater. And then my other goodie that I got since last I saw you is my Hygge bag, Hygge, you know, that Danish word for living the comfy life. Hygge. From the Fat Squirrel. Isn't this wonderful? It's got a dog, it's got a cat, it's got yarn, it's got a fire. She did a pre-order for this, and since this is the year of the sweater, I decided to treat myself to a new sweater bag. And so I did, because of course I need bags. I do not need bags. I do not need bags. That was a joke in case you didn't catch that. Okay. I think that's all the knitting I have to talk about. There's, you know, you knit a sweater and it takes up all your time. In fact, I've knit 2 fingering weight sweaters in a row, each one taking me 10 to 12 days to do it. And I'm starting to feel a little sore, like I'm knitting too much. I have been knitting a lot, and I haven't been doing all the other things I should be doing. Because why would you do that if you could knit? So I'm not too sad to not have the pattern for Marcella's sweater quite yet, although I do want to take it with me, so I hope that works out. So I can get a few other things done, because I got a lot to do between now and Friday, especially since we're having everybody over on Wednesday. So I won't be getting quite as much knitting done, so I wouldn't have another sweater to show you in 2 weeks anyway, even if I were podcasting in 2 weeks, which I will not be. So the other big news is I finally got contacted by the woman at the mill at Meadowlands. This is the people. I bought a fleece last year at Maryland Sheep and Wool, which is the first weekend in May. I bought a beautiful border Leicester fleece, which was my first fleece. And I took about a pound of it home, not even a pound, with me to kind of process by hand. And the rest of it I gave to the mill at Meadowlands to process into pencil roving for me. And that was the beginning of May, and I haven't, until 2 days ago, hadn't heard a word. And I sent her a couple of emails in December saying, you know, what's the story? And finally, she called me back. Unfortunately, she called me while I was in the shower, but Dennis spoke to her, and she apologized and said she had been having some health issues, and that she was going to be processing my fleece in the next couple of weeks, and that I would be getting a discount. So that's good. So I need to start getting my room organized so that I can start spinning again, because my fleece is going to be coming soon, I hope. And that will be fun. So I try to think of whatever else, because I've been having, you know, I do my podcast in my mind for a while before I actually podcast. And I cannot think of, oh, this is the hive hat. I was gonna block it and try to shrink it a little bit, but this is my wool. This is Juanita's, but mine is, I used mine that I processed by hand, and for the inside of that. So that is what I'm expecting color-wise. You know, I may end up with a finer spin once I get my yarn back, but this is the color. So I will be making some gray things. Anyway, I guess that's it. I don't know how that happened. So I will say, please, if you're interested in a swap, check out the swap thread. Please show us pictures of your sweaters if you're knitting a sweater. And I will see you in about a month. And follow me on Instagram if you care about my trip to Chile, because I will be meeting knitters and dyers, I hope, and seeing amazing scenery. And I'm very excited. So I will be back in about a month, and while I'm gone, I hope you have plenty of time to do the crafting that brings you joy. And I will see you soon. Bye.